If you think Delta is simply CELTA Part 2, boy do I have news for you. And if you're considering doing Delta, this is everything that you will need to know. As someone who has done Delta, Module 1, 2 and 3, in an extremely intense way, which I do not recommend, and we will go over it. So today we will go over who can do it, how to do it, timeline, what to expect and how to get ready, life after Delta, and other options, because obviously you don't only have Delta. So who is Delta for? Ideally, schools which provide Delta courses recommend having at least 2 years experience before starting your Delta. I completely agree with that as someone who had just about 2 years experience before doing my Delta. Everyone's path and experience looks different. So in 2 years, for example, I had taught basically everything: business English, exam preparation, general English 1-to-1, online, offline, English for specific purposes, anything you can think about, I had already done. There's a reason why you need 2 years. It's not just, it looks better on paper. The idea is when you're doing module 2 and you're writing your background essays, you need to relate what you're talking about to your previous classroom experience. So if you get a C1 class to teach, but you've never really taught C1 or only done it very little, you will have a lot of problems, because it's very, very easy to spot if you're writing about an experience you haven't actually had as a teacher. So the experience part, it's helpful for you because you will need to go back to that. And the more experience you have, the more examples you have. So I would suggest more than 2 years. Make sure that you have enough experience in different contexts, different levels, teaching different things. How can you do Delta? You have different options. In my case, I wanted to get it over with, so I went to International House London to do Module 1, 2 and 3. How it works is they focused on Module 2 because that's the teaching practice. And then over the span of 8 weeks, we also had an introduction and some help with Module 1 and Module 3. Obviously, in my case, I had to take study leave from work, focus on that. And in most cases, is not sustainable. I didn't have to pay for accommodation and I had money set aside. So it worked for me, but it's a huge investment. So what most people do is they do it online, especially with Module 1 and Module 3. There's not a problem at all for that. But with Module 2, since it's a teaching practice, you will need to actually teach a class, because you do get feedback on that. It's what you're getting judged on. So there's no way around it, you need a class. So if you're doing it online, you will use a class in your actual school. So you need to make sure that you're teaching. That's kind of the catch-22 with Delta. It's extremely time-consuming and intense, but you can't just take time off because you do need to be teaching while doing that. On the other hand, the good news is that there's no deadlines, really. There's no timeline that you need to follow. Most teachers I know, they take around 1 year, 1 year and a half, but it's not set in stone. Especially if you're working, you might need and want to take your time to do it. I was kind of an extreme case because again, I'm impatient and I just wanted to get it over with, so I did everything in 3 months. Do not recommend, absolutely do not recommend. But what I did, so you have options, is I went to London, did Module 2 in presence, so in 8 weeks my teaching practice was done, and then I got back to my job and I had 4 weeks to do everything. So 3 weeks to get ready for Module 1, which then I did in Malta because there was a centre to do it. And then the week after I handed in Module 3. Don't do that. You have set dates for exams though. If you're doing online, Module 2 is a bit different, but for Module 1 and Module 3, it's twice per year that you can either sit the exam or hand in Module 3, June and December. So you need to organize your time around this. There's a big overlap between the 3, obviously, but I would personally suggest to start with the teaching practice for the simple reason that there will be a lot of reading involved, which will then help you with Module 1 and Module 3. In case you need a bit of a refresher about the different modules, Module 1 is an exam. You sit 2 papers. It's methodology, is assessment, course books, all the theoretical part, really. There's a lot of study involved for this part, for all of it. And those are 2 papers, 90 minutes, that's it. And you'll need each and every minute of those 90. Then Module 2 is the teaching practice. This is the very practical bit. You teach 4 lessons, 2 systems, 2 skills. You have to be strategic about this because in the end you will need 1 skill and 1 system that you put forward. And the last one is observed externally, so it's the one that counts the most. So you want to be something that is your very, very strong suit. Pick your best one for your last one. Again, I was not smart about it. I thought, let me just be quirky and different and pick harder and harder things every single time. Again, don't do that. You'll also have an experimental practice, which not assessed because it's not observed, but you do need to write about it. And for each lesson, you need to write a background essay, a lesson plan, and a post-lesson reflection. It's a lot. Do not think that your CELTA lesson plan is even remotely similar to your Delta lesson plan. 2 very different things. And it's the opposite of being rigid. So if you have one thing in your lesson plan but you change it, as long as you can justify what you've done in class, ding ding ding, you win. It's a good lesson, if it makes sense. Because that's also what it is being a good teacher. You need to be flexible and work on the spot. And then for module 3, you will need to write a curriculum for 20 hours. You choose your specialism. In my case, it was teaching English in an English-speaking environment because that's where I was working. So I used an actual class. The weird thing here is you need to use an actual class that exists because you will need a lot of data from them. And again, if you're making it up, very easy to spot. So choose an actual class. You don't have to be teaching them. I wasn't, for example, but you will need to provide all this data and then create a curriculum specifically for that class. And again, it has to be specific. If you've done a good job, that curriculum won't work for anyone in the world but those specific students. So this is module 1, 2, and 3. You can take them in any order. How do you prepare? The best thing you can do is to try and get in a reflective mood and think very critically about what you're doing before you start Delta. Everything you've learned during CELTA, basically say goodbye to it. It will be a whole different thing. So your ego, bye. Start reflecting after your lessons. What went wrong? Why you could have done things differently? What changed while you were in class compared to your original plan? And same thing when you're planning lessons. Think about them critically. Why am I doing this? How does this stage help this other stage? Is there any particular reason why I'm changing an activity? Or maybe why I'm not changing an activity? Why is the course book the way it is? Basically, we're all becoming philosophers at this point. But getting in this mindset of questioning things and being able to give reasons for why you do things will help you so much during Delta. I would also suggest start reading articles. Anything ELT related, you want to be reading lots and lots of articles because these will help you later on. And same things with some books. In the description, you will find a list of books that are recommended reading for Delta. How it works is you don't have to read everything. You just pick and choose while you're doing module 3 or while you're doing module 2 for the background essays. So you'll just need a lot of quotes. What I did personally, which worked really, really well for me, every time I was reading something, whether an article or a textbook, have my little notebook in which I would write quotes that I thought would be helpful. And write them with the reference, so like author, title, editor, year, blah, 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 because you will need that. Going back to these quotes helped me massively while I was writing my background essays, because instead of having to go back and reread books, I would just go there and find something that fits. Like, okay, this is about speaking, I'm doing speaking, this fits really nicely, I already have it here. Because everything needs to be justified, so there's a lot of reading involved. And again, you need to be specific, so there's no way around it, like, please don't use ChatGPT for stuff like this, basically. And what to expect. As I said before, forget about your ego. This is a whole different thing. You can be a great teacher, you can be an okay teacher, you could have passed your CELTA with A. This is a whole different beast. You basically unlearn everything you've done until now, question everything you've been doing, and by the end of it, you'll be able to do things in a very different way. That's the beauty of it, but you just need to be open to it and to accept what's constructive criticism, because the tutors are there to help you be a better teacher. So just take it in. Especially if you do module 2 in presence, there's a lot going on there. You'll always be working on something. Like the moment you finish one lesson, you'll already be working on the next lesson, because in between you're also teaching, because that's your class at that point. So you will co-teach with other teachers, so different days, different hours, you work with other teachers, but you full on have a class. So you also need to create other lessons. So between creating lessons, writing lesson plans, reflection stages, post-lesson reflections, background essays, kind of like, revising and studying the stuff that meanwhile they give you in class during the input sessions, you need to be in the right frame of mind. You need your time, you need a space where you can just study and no one's bothering you, because there will be a lot of that. There will be a lot of very long nights drinking coffee or watermelon Red Bull in my case. But it's worth it, because what happens after Delta, you have all of a sudden a lot of open doors, which is very nice. So in big schools such as British Council, usually what you will get is a different rate. So if you're a Delta qualified teacher, you will earn more than a CELTA qualified teacher. Other options are you get into management. I was working as an academic manager and as the ADOS. Usually for ADOS, you don't really need Delta, but the idea is that you're progressing towards the role of director of studies, and for that you do need Delta. So a lot of schools will tell you, are you willing to do Delta, or are you planning on doing Delta eventually? So you can become DOS. Academic manager, as I said, teacher training, you can write articles. If you want to speak at conferences, having Delta definitely helps. In my case, I chose the teacher training path. After that, straight away, I go back, I did a course on Train the Trainer. I got a certificate for that, so I am officially a teacher trainer. And with that, then you can do CPD sessions, short courses, you're on the right track to become a CELTA trainer. So there's a lot that you can do. As I was saying, Delta is expensive, so do you have other options? Yes, you do. There's DIP TESOL, which is very similar. It has an extra section though. They also focus a lot on pronunciation, which we still do in Delta, but apparently it's more in DIP TESOL. And the price is a bit cheaper and more affordable than Delta, or a master's, because a Delta is considered a level 7, so the same as a master. I do think they're different, because a master's takes 2 years, whereas Delta, I've done it in 3 months, but you can take your time. I would say Delta is much more hands-on, because you do have like this very big part on teaching practice, whereas the master's is a bit more theoretical, I would say. I would say job-wise in the ELT industry, what I see is Delta everywhere. Like you need Delta required, and then DIP TESOL is considered the same, and then a master's is accepted too, but let's say Delta is the one that it's recognized worldwide. Everyone loves Delta, blah, blah, blah. So I'd say this is it. To give you some peace of mind, yes, it was intense. Yes, there were moments in which I was very overwhelmed, but at the same time I was in London. I still managed to go out from time to time with my friends on a Saturday, and to kind of have a little bit of work-life balance, study-life balance. So it's a lot, but you don't need to be scared or worried. I would say if you start doing something before you start Delta, that will help you massively. Start doing some background reading, start thinking critically about what you're doing in the classroom, and you're already off to a good start. Obviously, there's a lot going on with Delta, so I'm sure that I haven't covered everything. So if you do have any questions, ask them in the comments and I will answer or make a follow-up video. I hope this was helpful, and I hope if you are considering doing Delta, you feel a bit more relaxed about it now. So thank you and talk to you soon. Bye!